We have breaking news this morning out of Poland. Russia makes a deliberate threat to a NATO ally by flying drones over Polish territory. I will share that with you right now. This happened while many of us were sleeping. Others of us woke up in the middle of the night to hear this news.
Breaking news out of Poland. The military there accusing Moscow of an act of aggression after Polish and NATO forces scrambled to shoot down Russian drones that violated its airspace. Prime Minister Donald Tusk has confirmed a military response operation is underway following multiple airspace violations. Polish and NATO jets were scrambled following reports from Ukraine's Air Force that Russian drones were headed towards the country's airspace. During the incident, Polish authorities shut down several major airports, including Warsaw International, and urged its citizens to stay indoors. The exact number of Russian drones over Poland remains unclear. We're joining us now for more is CNN military analyst and retired U.S. Air Force Colonel Cedric Leighton. Thanks so much for joining us.
You bet, Linda. Always good to be with you.
So this marks the first time Poland has taken direct military action against airborne threats from Russia crossing into its territory since the war began. Just how significant is this moment?
It's very significant, Linda. One of the key aspects of this is the fact that the Poles felt compelled to shoot down at least some of the drones. Now, we don't know, as you mentioned, how many drones or even where they actually fell in Polish territory, but it's pretty clear from some of the postings that we've seen from Polish government officials that drone fragments can be found on Polish territory. So the Polish authorities are looking for those drone fragments. They've asked people to make sure that they stay away from those fragments, but that they inform the police that those fragments are there and that they can actually be located. So the Poles are obviously a frontline state. They're clearly sensitive to this kind of violation of their airspace. And it really marks the first time that there's been a concerted effort, not by the Russians, to potentially take their drones into Polish airspace, but also a concerted effort by the Poles to respond with strength to these kinds of actions by purportedly by the Russians. So it's a major change in the tenor of the basically frozen conflict that has existed between Poland and Russia up until this point.
Yeah, exactly. This isn't the first airspace violation by Russian drones, but certainly the first time Poland has activated its air defenses, scrambled its fighter jets. From a military perspective, what does this reveal about Poland's readiness to respond?
Well, what it looks like, at least right now, is that the Poles have a very heightened state of alert. And, obviously their alert phase has increased quite a bit because of the incursion of these drones. But the fact that they were able to respond so quickly indicates that they were already in a heightened state of alert. And that very fact is, I think, symptomatic of them being a frontline state, basically because they border both Ukraine and Belarus. Ukraine, of course, engaged in the war with Russia, Belarus, a Russian ally. And it also shows that with heightened tensions, there's an exercise that the Russians are going to be conducting with Belarus.
Okay. So, you know this. Now, even before news broke that Poland had, with NATO allies, shot down several of these drones that were definitely not off course accidentally, Putin, experts believe, is pushing the boundaries. He does not respect Donald Trump. He is in charge and pulling Donald Trump's strings. Hillary Clinton was correct. Donald Trump is Putin's puppet. And the other day, Trump said something about maybe sanctions would be in order against Russia. This was, I believe, Putin's response to that. But what about Donald's response? Because yesterday, when he went out to dinner in Washington, D.C., to a restaurant that wasn't his own, and he met protesters before and after dinner, he was asked after his meal, which, by the way, Pete Hegseth, his so-called Secretary of War, really defense, Marco Rubio, his Secretary of State, were sitting there enjoying their overpriced dinner at this Joe's seafood steakhouse and crab place. Never been there, but apparently it's good or something. He was asked about Putin, and Donald Trump ran away. Let's watch that.
Yep, you're good. Thank you.
Mr. President, any response to Russia? Mr. President, what about Russian drones getting into Polish airspace tonight?
Thank you.
He did not respond. That happened before the drones were struck down, I believe. It's hard to really fully know the timing and what was confirmed when. Okay, so that is our breaking news. Now, before I return to the main topic of the day, which is the importance of everybody pushing back on Donald Trump's goons and his lies, since I mentioned that dinner, I think you need to see what happened when Donald Trump went into that restaurant. The complete security fail by the Secret Service, unless it was intentional, because there were protesters standing within feet of the president shouting at him. Now, what they were shouting is kind of fantastic. Oh, I think J.D. Vance was there as well, because remember J.D. Vance compared Donald Trump once to Hitler, and the protesters shouted out, "Trump is the Hitler of our time." This was led by Code Pink. It's not clear how they knew he was coming to the restaurant. Did someone leak it from the restaurant staff, or because it's just apparently a few blocks from the White House and they had the motorcade driving there, and then Trump standing outside answering press questions beforehand and doing his fist pump at protesters? Is it possible that these folks just scrambled, so to speak? That's the word of the day. And got to that location. We may know, or we may never know, but you need to watch this. These are brave people. Let's play it.
What do you want your legacy to be?
Let's go.
Okay, I'm going to play it again for you. And you can see there's some longer versions of this, but I think you can see Donald is standing there at a kind of a medium-sized long table. He's got his back to this pillar. He's come into the restaurant. The exit is toward the back. And the people holding cameras, videotaping this, are just on the other side of the table practically. You can see where they are. And they're shouting, "Trump is the Hitler of our time. What do you want your legacy to be?" And here we go.
Trump is the Hitler of our time. What do you want your legacy to be?
Let's go.
So you can see he's getting agitated. Outside, he had a strong fist bump, but now when he is confronted in a small space, he is terrified and he is angry that his people have not cleared these protesters out. Okay, friends. So let me talk about Mika Brzezinski. I know there are folks who are tuning in now who are done with Morning Joe. They have been pissed at Joe and Mika and the entire team ever since they bent the knee and went to visit Mar-a-Lago after Donald Trump was most recently elected. And you know, I was extremely critical. I think I had 2 different shows criticizing them, something like about how Morning Joe and Mika caved, and I called them Morning Joke. I was very angry at them. And I'm going to give credit where credit is due. I'm not suggesting you have to show any kind of grace for them or even watch their show. But I want you to see what press need to do. If Mika can do this, so can everyone else. And this is when she is pushing back against Tom Homan, the absolute thug who was trying to defend the unconstitutional and inhumane behavior of ICE, right? He is the so-called border czar. And these folks feel especially emboldened because of the Supreme Court decision on Monday that is allowing this racial profiling to continue, at least for now. And at least for now is a nightmare. So I want to show you that. I think it's excellent. And then we're going to take it from there because I want you to know reality versus what Homan says. And I want to share with you what actually our constitutional rights are. So let's play this.
Innocent Americans raped and murdered by people who are not supposed to be here. So rather than going back and forth and say, well, ICE has got a car parked near a church, that is ridiculous. You're out there looking for people like this, exactly what they're doing.
Well, I would argue that actually that the ICE vehicle parked outside a Spanish mass is a frightening sight, given what has happened in this country. I also, with respect, sir, thank you for the information that you have shared on this show, but we would appreciate all of the information. All of it, all of the data that you say you have.
I've done this show several times. Every time I'm on your show, I speak with integrity, I speak with honesty, and I speak with facts. The bottom line is, because of all this false narrative, and you using the term disappearing people,
well,
is
that's
disgusting.
What's happened. That happened to the group that was sent to El Salvador.
U.S. citizens get arrested every day. U.S. citizens get arrested by police every day. Are they being disappeared? No, their laws are being enforced. They're being arrested. They're being put in detention because they committed a criminal offense.
Not like what you're doing.
Not even close. We're enforcing the law and arresting people here in violation of law that are public safety threats. That's not disappearing people. That's enforcing the laws of this country and making this country safer.
I thank you very much for explaining what ICE considers to be a danger and a criminal threat. Everybody understands the reality, and we appreciate your sharing that reality with us, and we would love the data. Border czar for the Trump administration, Tom Homan. Thank you very much for coming on the show this morning.
Okay, so let's talk. What he is claiming, that what they're doing to people they believe are violating our immigration laws, he's claiming that's the same thing that happens if you are arrested by the police and accused of a crime. No, it's not, at least under our law. And fuck no. Is that their plan? So, okay, before I let you know exactly the difference, before they wipe away those constitutional rights for us, Mika is right. Our government is disappearing people off the streets and sometimes sending them, as we know, to prisons in El Salvador and elsewhere. Now, I want you to see, I'm going to give you an example of these roving immigration forces and what happened yesterday. Let's look at this.
Today, one day after the Supreme Court lifted the ban on so-called roving immigration patrols. This video of federal agents swarming
I'm sorry, this is from, it looks like it's from last Friday. Apologies. Let's play it.
Playing out today, one day after the Supreme Court lifted the ban on so-called roving immigration patrols. This video of federal agents swarming a car and detaining people at gunpoint was captured in a Van Nuys parking lot this morning.
With weapons drawn, federal agents walked toward the driver's side of this red vehicle in a Van Nuys parking lot. Luis tells us he was in the area when he saw what was happening and began to film.
That's when I saw this chaos, guns drawn, everything. The girl was there screaming like, oh, like, why are you guys pointing guns at us? Like, we're not doing anything. That's when they got close. They break the window, they dragged the guys out. And then the female, she said she was pregnant, but they were just, all these guys gang up on her.
A man who identified himself as a friend of some of the people in the car did not want to go on camera, but said the two men are lawful permanent residents and that the woman is a U.S. citizen. On the passenger side, an agent points his gun at a woman who said, "If you touch me, I'm suing you." She then steps out of the car. This comes one day after the Supreme Court lifted a federal judge's temporary ban on the Department of Homeland Security's so-called roving patrols, which have been denounced as unconstitutional and carried out through racial profiling. Like many others documenting the aggressive sweeps and arrests, Luis said he wanted to film as evidence.
They're always doing something they're not supposed to do. So what we need witnesses, we need people recording because, we didn't do, no, you know what, we got you on tape, bro, because all this, they do a bunch of stuff they're not supposed to.
We got you on tape, bro. Luis and Mika are getting them on tape. We need evidence so we can see it. And evidence for our future when I hope to God, and I hope to law, more importantly, this gets turned around. Now, I've got one more example of an Irish citizen who was pulled aside because his name is Lee Stinton, and he was pulled aside. He believes it's because he looks Mexican. Okay, I'm going to play what he went through, being disappeared and thrown into inhumane facilities because of our government. What Homan is claiming is, there are these terrible rapists, they're getting off the street. You know where the rapist is? The rapist is in the White House. I'm not allowed to say rapist, apparently. I say it because Judge Kaplan said the adjudicated sexual abuser, that what he did to E. Jean Carroll was equivalent of rape. Donald Trump has also been accused in a deposition by his wife of raping her. We also know Jeff Epstein. We go on and on. They protect rapists. That's not what this is about. This is about white supremacy, threatening people who do not present as white in our culture's definition, and intimidating immigrants. Okay, let's play Lee Stinton.
Started around, I think if I remember correctly, it was June 8th. I was on my way to work, which I did every day. I cycled every day, and I was arrested by an ICE officer and kind of kidnapped, I guess, off the street, and taken to Chrome Detention Centre. The conditions in Chrome were the most inhumane thing that I've ever experienced in my life. They had nowhere for anyone to sleep. They weren't feeding people, and they were very abusive to the inmates. The holding cell that had us in for almost 8 days was meant to have 10 people in it, and there was at least 100 men. We were like sardines, all just
8 days
stuck on like a cold concrete floor. I want people to know that it's not just criminals that are being taken. It's like normal everyday people, like myself. Like I had like a correct visa. I had all my paperwork together. I had a social security number. I paid my taxes. I've never been in trouble with the police before in my life, either in America or Northern Ireland, and still they took me. You know, I think they're just looking for numbers at this point. A lot of things that either happened to me and happened to others. There was a guy that had been asking for his medication for days for his heart, and when we were out in the rec hall, the rec yard, he dropped dead of a heart attack in front of everyone. They kind of just moved us all away from him, but it's something that I'm never ever gonna forget. You know, it's ingrained in my head.
Oof. Now you heard those details. Do you actually believe under our Constitution, our existing criminal justice system, that this is how he was treated is the same way that you're allowed to be treated? That's what Tom Homan said. So I want to share with you. I think this will be helpful. A little legal education. What are your constitutional rights upon arrest? You know what's interesting? They teach us some American history, maybe elementary school and high school. They give us some civics. Have you ever, though, been trained on your constitutional rights in case you're arrested? I don't know. Now is the time. Let's go. I think that you'll like this. This is from PBS, when PBS still was funded.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. That phrase, called the Miranda warning, is known worldwide from television. Admit it, most of us learned about criminal justice by watching TV shows. But criminal justice is serious business. People's lives can be changed forever with a police encounter or if they find themselves accused of a crime. Our justice system is based on the premise that all of us have a right to be free. That right is protected under the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 8th Amendments. This means we should be free to live our lives without intrusion from the government. Back in 1791, the framers of the Constitution added the Bill of Rights to make sure we, the people, were protected from the very government they had just created. In 1787, here's why. King George had the power to send his soldiers into private homes looking for evidence of disloyalty among the colonists. They'd bang on the door, open up in the name of the king, barge in, and start grabbing anything that looked suspicious. Soldiers locked up people without telling them why they were being arrested. And then held secret trials without a jury.
Sounds
James
familiar.
Madison, now known as the father of the Constitution, wrote the Bill of Rights to keep the federal government from doing any of the crazy things that happened under King George. For example, the 4th Amendment says the people have the right to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures. That means the police need a search warrant before they can get into your home or car or purse or even to look inside your book bag. But, yes, there's always a but. If you are a student, the principal can look in your stuff as long as it's on school property. That's to keep you and other students safe. The 5th Amendment is filled with protections.
There are also other,
The big
obviously,
one is a
exceptions to
protection
search
against
warrants.
self-incrimination. That's a long word for saying no one can be forced to speak against themselves. Life is hard enough with people talking about you. The government can't make you talk against yourself. So take the 5th and stay quiet. Get a lawyer to speak for you. The 6th Amendment says we have a right to a speedy and public trial. You can just show up to almost any criminal trial and make sure the judge, jury, and attorneys are following the law. Watching our courts keeps them honest. So, show up, get a front row seat, and see how our system works. It's free, and it's your constitutional right. The 6th Amendment also says the defendant must know why they are being tried. Prosecutors represent the government. They must state the charges against the defendant. The defense counsel represents the defendant, who is innocent until proven guilty. The judge presides over the entire case. The jury listens to all the facts, and in the end, it's not the judge that determines if the prosecutor
I think Tom
has met
Homan
that
needs to
high
watch
burden
this.
of proving guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. It's the jury. But what if the defendant can't afford an attorney? Well, poor or indigent defendants must receive an attorney anyway. It's the law, based on a case called Gideon versus Wainwright. Did you know before Gideon, most criminal defendants had to be their own lawyers? Imagine a regular person had to cross-examine witnesses and
let me just pause here for a second. This is how it's supposed to work, but not in immigration court, first of all. And you have heard that children aren't even getting lawyers representing them. Okay, let's continue. But this is what happens. This is what Homan ignores. He's claiming that what they're doing isn't disappearing people, that they're getting all these same rights. And you know that's not true.
make objections, present evidence, make opening and closing arguments. Of course, most of them lost. Then Gideon wrote his own appeal on a piece of notebook paper and took his case to the Supreme Court, saying it was a violation of his Sixth Amendment right to counsel. The court agreed. Ever since, defendants in capital and non-capital cases who are indigent get a public defender or free lawyer. But, yes, there's a but. The public defenders are overworked and underpaid, which means justice is too often based on how much money each defendant has. So poor people and too many people of color are not getting the justice they deserve. This could be the difference between life or death. The Eighth Amendment protects against cruel and unusual punishment, but, yes, and this is a big one, America has a death penalty or capital punishment. Most countries have abolished the death penalty, but our Supreme Court says the government has the right to execute people by lethal injection, hanging, firing squad, and electric chair, and it does not violate the Eighth Amendment. It's only considered cruel and unusual if the person suffers unreasonably while they're being executed. The Bill of Rights was ahead of its time back in 1791. Today, not so much. Let's review. We have a right to be safe in our homes and keep the government out of our stuff. Police need a warrant. The Miranda warning based on...
Okay, so that's the basic. But let me supplement for us adults in the room. One of the most important constitutional rights is that within a short period of time, in some states, because of state constitutions, it's 48 hours. But I believe the limit is actually 72 hours that you are entitled to an arraignment. So what is an arraignment? This is when you get to hear the charges against you. So in other words, these folks, when you heard about that man from Ireland who was there for like 8 days, not hearing any charges against him, that's not how it works for us. Okay, so in federal court, usually it's the same day or the day after you're arrested, you're brought before a magistrate judge, and the standard is without unnecessary delay. So it's supposed to be the same day. It's got to be usually within 48 hours, right? This is even what our Department of Justice says. And if they don't within that time period, it can be up to 72 hours. If you're in custody, have the federal magistrate judge read you the charges against you, they have to let you go. Furthermore, there's supposed to be a bail hearing. So they have to make a case for why they have to hold you there, why you're either a danger to the community, based on the charges against you, right? None of that is happening in Tom Homan's world. We need to be clear about that. Now, as I said, the rules are different when it comes to immigration. However, we did have a federal judge saying, you can't just do these sweeps where you just look around without any reasonable suspicion. You look around, you just grab everybody who's brown and then you lock them up. Don't bring them, in this way. Okay. So I just want to be clear that there are judges, and the Supreme Court hasn't fully ruled on it yet. They've just allowed it to continue, that say what is going on is unconstitutional. I also want to be clear that even under normal circumstances, even when there aren't these goons under Trump, immigration court is different. Immigration rights are different. Okay, so all that said, under the Immigration Naturalization Act, things are different, but they're not so different that you're allowed to just disappear people off the street. That's not how it's supposed to work. And it's not so different. It's not so different that you're allowed to take people out of the country, send them out of the country, right? So we know that. But that's not really my point here. I'm trying to emphasize the fact that we are in a dangerous space if we have, and we allow people like Tom Homan to say people are arrested every day, and this is no different what they are doing. It sure as hell is different, at least for now. Now, I ask one last question. If anyone can be accused of being pulled off the street in a raid, and accused of being here unlawfully, and put into that system that doesn't follow the rules I'm telling you about, do we really have rights? I say no. I say no. I say we're in a very dangerous place where anyone can be disappeared off the street. And everything that you just saw in that, the nice little cartoon, and what I said about arraignments and bail, good luck with that. Very concerning. That is why I'm giving Mika all the credit in the world for pushing back, and I wish I saw more of it. Now, on the same note here, we have problems with due process when it comes to crimes in international waters. For example, when Donald Trump said that they shot that boat out of the water, when our government murdered apparently 11 people on a boat because they said they believe they were trafficking narcotics. This is a boat off Venezuela. I don't know if it was in our waters or, I don't know exactly where. I don't recall if it had come into U.S. waters. I don't think so. I think it was not in our territory, but we claimed that the people on the boat were violating U.S. law by bringing drugs into America. Okay? That is a crime. We're not at war with Venezuela. And their belief that they can just kill somebody is the equivalent of them believing that if you're walking down the street and they think you are a drug dealer, they could just shoot you in the head. I am not exaggerating. This is a problem. And thank God Senator Rand Paul pointed this out. Let's play it.
The Barbary pirates were attacking us and taking our sailors and capturing our.
So he's being asked on Fox News the difference between, piracy in the U.S. and what we did hundreds of years ago. But listen to the whole thing.
Big difference. The Barbary pirates were attacking us and taking our sailors and capturing our ships. They were committing acts of war against us, and fighting them is self-defense. And if this speedboat, 2,700 miles from our coast, was attacking one of our destroyers, they can blow it up.
Well, hold on.
Nobody
real quick,
argues
Senator,
with
the
that.
narco-terrorists are attacking in a different fashion. It's not as on the nose as what the Barbary pirates did. They're importing drugs that do kill Americans to the tune of 65,000 Americans a year.
I realize that. But if this is...
Oh, guess what? As noted in Big Dirty Money, my book, and elsewhere, you know that the Sackler family, Purdue Pharma, what they did was addicting and killing people. I do not advocate that our government go and kill the Sacklers. So why can they do that with other drug dealers? This isn't how this is done. Okay.
A new policy. Realize that off of Miami, a dozen ships will be interdicted today. They will be stopped, boarded, and searched. Some of them will have drugs, some of them won't. The reason we board them before we blow the crap out of them is some of them don't have drugs. Think about it this way, and this is how people don't quite get this. Let's say there's a house in your neighborhood and they're all selling fentanyl and thousands of people are died and you're just so mad. Do you go over there and just kill them or burn them? No, you go to a judge and you get a warrant and you do that.
But
we
Senator,
have an interdiction program.
I feel like the difference there is you're talking about an American citizen on an American soil. And of
No,
course,
we're talking
analogy,
about ships off of Miami. We're talking about people speeding along off of Miami. Are we going to just simply blow them up? No, we're not. I mean, if we were, that would be extraordinary. That would be extraordinary to blow up ships.
It's not simply your neighbor and you're mad at your neighbor. It is the United States government, the Department of War, and certain intelligence, which, by the way, I don't accept wholeheartedly or think they are flawless on. But it is a certain level of intelligence where we hear this is what's happening and this is who we struck. We would rely on those very same institutions if we were told, for example, a foreign power or a terrorist were bringing in on a ship VX gas or sarin gas, which equally would kill Americans. This just happens to be fentanyl. Would you oppose the military striking a ship headed towards our shores with VX gas?
No. And the question is this, though. We have dozens of ships every day stopped for drugs. Is the new policy going to be blow them to smithereens with drones? I can't imagine that's going to be our policy. It would lead to chaos. We have dozens of ships. Think of it also this way. I'm not saying this is U.S. citizens, but when we try to protect U.S. citizens' rights, we still make mistakes. We get a judge's warrant, we send the police to a house. Sometimes the numbers get transposed and they go in the wrong house and the wrong people die, even with the utmost care. What are the chances that somebody on a boat leaving Venezuela actually has been, their parents have been kidnapped and the boat has been taken, you're told to drive us to this island or we'll kill your parents, and the people on the boat actually aren't even the people that you'd like to kill, that someone's been kidnapped to do this? What if they are,
a theory, and it's a fair one.
Sexual.
Okay. You get the point. And I just think it's so important to continue to push back on this idea that we can simply trust the word of our military, especially as Rand Paul is saying, what about these boats coming into Miami? You know, remember, Trump is talking about and has already nationalized, federalized the National Guard and brought them into cities to help ICE enforcement. What does that mean? You know, this is a dangerous area we're in. I think we can continue to push back on this. But once again, it's important to face this. Now, let me pivot for a second. Let's pivot back to Donald Trump and his lying yesterday and the continued cover-up of his role in Jeff Epstein's trafficking scheme. What we saw is there's no question that Donald Trump submitted back in 2002 for the 2003 birthday book of Jeffrey Epstein, in that range, right? Ghislaine was collecting these letters in the end of 2002. Epstein turns 50 in January of 2003, and Donald Trump submitted a really disgusting letter indicating that he and Jeff Epstein had a secret. Most likely he's referring to young girls. It was a naked outline of a girl, prepubescent or just pubescent girl. There's no question that Donald Trump was a close friend, if not best friend, of Epstein for more than a decade. And now Donald is lying. Now, why wouldn't he lie? He continues to lie about sexually abusing aging Carol. Donald Trump lies and says he has solved 7 wars. He lies. He says he won the election in 2020. Don't take this man seriously. So let's look at what the Dems are saying. And then, of course, how the Republicans are stomaching ignoring this. Don't let them. Here is Rep. Greg Cesar on CNN.
So what's your reaction then when you hear the White House press secretary, as you released that, a signature that does bear resemblance to his signature? And she said, as I have said all along, it's very clear President Trump.
Bear resemblance? We have series of signatures that look just like that, Brianna. But let me keep playing.
Did not draw this picture and he did not sign it. President Trump's legal team will continue to aggressively pursue litigation.
Well, look, when Donald Trump said first this didn't exist, and then we found it, and now he's saying he didn't sign it, his signature just looks just like his own signature. It's like the bank robber who's caught with a bag full of cash and says, I'm not the one who robbed the bank. I mean, everyday Americans just aren't going to keep on buying these sorts of excuses, and we're going to keep investigating this case, not just to have transparency around the president, but transparency around any powerful person in this country who turned a blind eye or was complicit in these horrible crimes, because we know that there are other women that are being trafficked and abused in this sort of way in this country right now. And we need to make sure that we're standing up for all survivors, these survivors and all other survivors in the country right now. And a president or a powerful politician saying nothing to see here, that's a sign that you've got to go look where they're telling you there's nothing to see here.
Congressman Greg Casar, thank you.
Now, a couple things. You know how they need 218 members of the House to get that so-called discharge petition so they can get a floor vote on demanding the DOJ release all the Epstein files? Well, guess what? You know, they were only at 216 because they didn't have enough Republicans. Well, something happened yesterday. There was a special election in Virginia, and a Democrat overperformed and won. His name is James Walkinshaw. And as a result, when he is sworn in, that will be another vote. We will just be one vote shy of what is needed. Now, I want to also share with you now, just so Brianna Keeler, just want to say, maybe that's what your lawyers are making you say, but let's just look at those signatures. Here are these signatures. They all look the same, right? This is on the top. We looked at this yesterday. Here are all the Donald Trump signatures. Sure as heck looks like his. And you would have to be completely insane. It is laughable, but that they are arguing that someone set Donald Trump up. So that would mean back in 2002, when Donald Trump was still partying with Epstein, that somebody decided to fake his signature and give this letter to Ghislaine Maxwell to put in this book, anticipating that he would be president one day. No, that's bullshit. And the other argument is, oh, this just showed up now and it was never in this book and that this is bullshit. This book came from the Jeff Epstein estate. The argument that the Democrats, if they had this, would have used this on Donald Trump belies the reality that the Democrats, when Joe Biden was in office, had the Mueller report, which indicated a map, volume 2, into obstruction of justice charges that Merrick Garland or a special counsel could have brought, and they didn't. In addition, they had a roadmap because Michael Cohen went to prison in connection with the hush money payment cover-up to interfere in the election. Merrick Garland could have brought that case, and they didn't. And in fact, that is the case that was later brought by the Manhattan DA under a state law statute that resulted in his conviction. Could I go on and on? There is strong evidence that Merrick Garland's Department of Justice decided to do almost the same thing that JP Morgan Chase did with Jeff Epstein, and that the Republicans are doing now with Donald Trump's involvement, which is a courtesy pass. Beyond the benefit of the doubt, just saying you guys are rich and powerful and everyone's going to yell at me and say I'm partisan, so I'm going to fucking ignore it. Now, yes, I know eventually a special counsel was appointed, but that was only when it was clear that Joe Biden was also being looked into because of some documents he kept in his home, and only because Donald Trump had officially announced he was running for election. At that point, Garland thought he needed to. No, he should have appointed a special counsel right away. But I don't want to lay everything on Merrick Garland here, because obviously, no matter what he did, the U.S. Supreme Court was going to stand in the way of anything that would hurt Donald Trump. Now, more on that in a second, but I want to now play Eric Swalwell talking about how to deal with the ridiculous lies from Donald.
This is an effort by Donald Trump to erase what we saw with our own eyes. And he's not just doing this with January 6th to exonerate himself and to give himself clean hands. He's telling you to not see with your own eyes the rising grocery prices, which he said would be gone on day one. He's telling you not to see your neighbor being chased through a Home Depot parking lot because he's trying to work hard and provide for his family. He's telling you not to see the new wars that he's adding to the map and the ones that he hasn't taken off. And he's telling you not to see the drawing that he made for the world's worst child sex predator, Jeffrey Epstein. And so what my theme and goal will be for the committee is for the American people to walk away and put truth over Trump.
You know, this just reminds me like so.
Truth over Trump. That is what we need to absolutely do. Now, let's look at how the Republicans are handling this, right? There's a lot of denial, but it's even worse. Let's watch this.
Have you seen that letter? And
I've not, but I would love to see it like matched with his handwriting.
Yeah,
it just
a letter
seems really wild. Yeah, I don't want to see it.
He said, I'd really like to see that letter matched with his handwriting. So we have Manu Raja hands the letter to, said, I have it right here. Oh, I don't want to see it. And he kind of laughs uncomfortably. Disgusting. See it, look at it. Understand what you are covering up. Don't allow these people any level of plausible deniability. Now, as for the United States Supreme Court, remember that they delayed for month after month after month when the question of Donald Trump's immunity for actions taken during his presidency, you know, the categories of immunity, the sort of absolute immunity, the presumption of immunity, and then for things outside of official conduct, no immunity, right? Remember that decision that came down July 1st of 2024? That decision could have come down in January or February. And then the case could have moved forward with the judge trying to make sure, because remember after it came down in July, the federal prosecutor in that case, the special counsel, Jack Smith, they indicted him with a new indictment before a grand jury to make clear that they were only looking at the conduct that that Donald Trump engaged in January 5th as a candidate, not as a president, right? They made it super clear. And we would have had time to move that case forward to trial if the Supreme Court had expedited, but they dragged their feet. And evidence yesterday is that when Donald Trump wants something expedited, they will. So let me share with you what happened yesterday. So as Rick Hasen, election law expert, said, they could have done something like this in the Trump immunity case and given a chance for the special counsel to take Trump's federal election. She do yesterday. This is Steve Mazie. New. The Supreme Court agrees to hear Trump's appeal in the tariffs case on a highly expedited basis. Oral argument will be during the first week of November. And remember, what they've done here is they've also, this is on hold for now, right? You might think the court below did that too, but his tariffs, which are in violation, that he doesn't have the right to do it. Tariffs are taxes, only Congress can enact them. And he's trying to find this hook in the International Economic Emergencies Powers Act. And the courts below saying, that doesn't work here. Well, the Supreme Court's expediting this for Donald. Okay, thanks, Supreme Court. Thank you. I know I promised you that I wanted to go through the Follow the Money article from the Times. I want to spend actually more time on that, and I will do that tomorrow or Friday, depending on how the schedule turns out. I promise. It's really good, and it's worth following the money. So now, though, I've got a crazy town for you. Let's play that. Today's crazy town is from Warm Brain, Secretary of Health and Human Services, talking about guns. And you know that his new emphasis is it's not the guns, it's the pharmaceuticals. And that it must be the pharmaceuticals that result in people killing people. Okay, so I just need to play this for you, what he had to say on guns, and I'll have some commentary on the other side.
That's the question. The firearms question, we're doing research. You know, the firearms question is a complex question, and it's not an easy question. The violence is what we're concerned with. This sudden onset of violence that began in the 1990s where people...
By the way, I so much want her to get out of the way of the camera or whoever is filming this to like move their arm over, but I can't control everything, my friends.
Would do something that has never been happened in history, which is somebody walks into a school or a church or a theater and starts shooting strangers. We had lots of guns.
Oh, he said it hadn't happened in history where someone walks into school or church or what and starts shooting strangers. Let's look.
Which is somebody walks into a school or a church or a theater and starts shooting strangers.
Yeah, I think Mary Lincoln might have a word about the theater, but there's more. Let's listen to the whole thing.
We had lots of guns when we were kids. We had comparably the same number of guns. Nobody was doing that. We had gun clubs at my school.
Oh my God. We had comparable number of guns, he said, when he was a kid. That's absolutely not true. But when he was a kid, and there was a gun club at his school when he was 10 years old, when RFK was 10 years old, Junior, you know what happened? His father was assassinated with a gun. Also, MLK, remember that? 1968. His lack of self-awareness is utterly, utterly off the charts, crazy town. And with that, my friends, have a beautiful Wednesday, and I will see you in the morning.
Hello, prison mates. It's the Gen Taub show where welcome everyone. Let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday and today. There is hope, and we are together in this democracy we work for. And again, welcome to the Gen Taub show. Hello, prison mates. It's the Gen Taub show where welcome everyone. Let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday and today. There is hope, and we are together in this democracy we work for. And again, welcome to the Gen Taub show.